All right, let's just dive right into this. Look, if you're a busy professional, you've probably been told, 100 times that you need to be more mindful. And if you're anything like me, your immediate thought is usually something along the lines of, yeah, right, I absolutely do not have 45 minutes to just sit silently on a cushion every single day. Well, today's explainer completely shatters that myth. We're breaking down a framework from Happywise that proves, without a doubt, that mindfulness is not about clearing your schedule. In fact, we're going to explore some incredibly actionable micro-practices that literally take just 10 to 15 seconds, and they can completely change the entire trajectory of your day.
You know, Jon Kabat-Zinn framed it perfectly. He said mindfulness is not a state you reach, it's a capacity you develop one moment at a time. It's not some finish line you cross. It's literally a muscle you train. At its core, mindfulness is really just a matter of attention. And honestly, the most fascinating thing about human attention is that it can be highly trained in these incredibly short, hyper-intentional bursts. You don't need a month-long mountaintop retreat, right? You just need a few seconds of focus to completely alter how your brain is operating in that exact moment.
So to understand exactly why this works so well, we need to take a really quick look at the biology of attention. Basically, our brains are constantly switching back and forth between two primary operational states. It's kind of like a toggle switch. And recognizing which of these two states you're currently in, well, that is the absolute first step to actually taking control of your day rather than, just letting your day happen to you.
It's really fascinating how these two modes break down. First up, you have automatic mode. Think of this as your autopilot. It's fast, it's incredibly efficient, and it uses barely any energy because it just relies on learned patterns. When you're in this mode, you aren't really choosing how to respond, you're just executing. Then on the flip side, you have deliberate mode. Now this one is slower, it's conscious, and it's totally governed by your prefrontal cortex. This is the zone where you make those complex decisions and actually regulate your emotions. So here is the absolutely crucial point to take away. These micro-practices we're talking about, they are not about just relaxing, not at all. They're about briefly activating that deliberate mode to physically interrupt your autopilot. You are literally turning your prefrontal cortex back on.
But that begs the question, right? How much time does that actually take? Well, a lot of people try the whole long and infrequent approach. An hour of meditation on a Sunday. But honestly, that is incredibly hard to maintain when life gets super intense. Instead, all the data points directly to a short and frequent approach. The crazy thing is, the brain actually changes its physical structure in response to repetition, not just duration. Doing a tiny 10-second practice 5 times a day fits perfectly into the crazy day you already have. And it's that exact frequency that builds the consistency you need to actually rewire your brain, especially when the pressure is on.
Okay, let's get into exactly how to do this. Tool number 1 is the rapid body check-in. And this takes literally 15 seconds. Step 1, just pause. Step 2, bring your attention down into your body and just notice any tension. Maybe it's tight shoulders, a clenched jaw, or a knot in your stomach. Just mentally name it, like, okay, shoulder tension. And then step 3, take a slow, deep exhale and consciously let it go. Now, why does this even matter? Well, research shows that perceiving your internal bodily states correlates directly with emotional intelligence. It's a game changer. You want to use this whenever you catch yourself just, living in your head during a massive block of intense work.
Now, let's check out our next tool and see how this actually builds up your resilience over time. It's called the cognitive frame shift. So imagine you are right in the middle of a seriously frustrating situation at work. Instead of immediately spiraling into that awful, catastrophic thinking, you just stop. You pause for 10 seconds, and you ask yourself one simple question. In 6 months, what is this situation actually going to look like? Or even, is this a real threat right now, or is it just my perception being amplified by stress? By simply forcing yourself to wait 10 seconds for that answer, you actively break right out of that reactive, interpretive loop. It is literally an instant mental state change.
Another unbelievably powerful 10-second tool is the reset with an anchor word. Here's how it works. You pick one word with a high semantic load for you. Something like calm, grounded, or open. Then, you just close your eyes for 10 seconds, repeat the word in your mind, and actively link it back to a specific moment when you truly deeply felt that way. Just let a tiny trace of that feeling bubble up in your body. And the cool thing is, you are not just repeating a nice little affirmation to yourself here. You are actually physically reactivating a neural network associated with emotional regulation. A network your brain already recognizes as 100% real.
And that brings us to a practice that I think is absolutely vital before literally any important meeting, the emotional residue check. Again, 15 seconds, tops. Right before you jump on that massive team call, or even before you walk through your front door after a long day, you just pause and ask yourself,
What am I bringing with me right now from whatever I was just doing? If you're carrying over irritation from a bad phone call, just name it. Simply acknowledging, okay, I'm carrying some anxiety from that looming deadline. That drastically reduces the chances that this leftover, residual emotion is going to unconsciously spill over and completely ruin your next interaction.
Now, the real secret to making all of this actually stick is integration. Look, if you just do these practices at random, you're not going to form a stable neural circuit. To create actual neuroplasticity, you need a system. And that brings us to the principle of habit stacking. Basically, you just anchor these specific micro-practices to moments that already exist in your day. Waiting for your laptop to boot up? Boom, do a 15-second breathing exercise. Walking down the hall to the meeting room? Quick check-in. Is my mind here right now, or is it somewhere else? About to fire off a reply to a super tense email? Do that 15-second emotional residue check first. You let the existing context act as your trigger.
Here's the thing to remember. You really can't evaluate the results of this after just 2 or 3 days. Neuroplasticity, the literal physical rewiring of your brain, it absolutely requires consistent repetition over time. So the right question to be asking yourself isn't, am I some perfectly mindful guru now? No way. The only question that actually matters is simply, have I practiced today? Think about it. You've got 10 seconds right now. What are you going to do with them?